Hey guys, it's DVD Mega Clips here, and today I'm going to be doing a review on 2001 A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick. And yeah, over the next few weeks or so I'm going to be doing, covering the majority of Stanley Kubrick's work, giving them reviews and rating the films and talking about the films and, well, basically just giving you a rundown on the film in general. So yeah, Stanley Kubrick's pretty much one of my favourite directors of all time. I think he's very artistic, and that's basically one of the reasons why I enjoy watching his movies so much, because they're so visually stunning and beautiful. For those of you who don't know, Stanley Kubrick was actually a photographer before he became a director, which I think is the reason, or one of the reasons, why his films just look so great. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a review on 2001, and this is a film, like many of Kubrick's work, which was adapted from a short story by Arthur C. Clarke, who is one of the co-writers of the script for Space Odyssey. That story covers pretty much the majority of the film, and then after that, within the film, Kubrick tends to go off in his own routes and directs the Jupiter mission, which has nothing to do with the short story. But yeah, basically, A Space Odyssey, it's full of a lot of people have their own sort of interpretations on the film. It's a very, very difficult film to review in that sense, because it's, well, hard to sort of get into words the storyline, because it's such an elaborate plot. But basically it's about space exploration and how we have evolved and developed as a race. It's about technological advancement from the most primitive of times and progressed over time. Then, after the sort of Kubrick's directed that, he directs the sequence after it, which is the Jupiter mission, which is basically a story of Kubrick's own, and it's so visually stunning. It's got a lot of, especially the sequences in the wormhole, where it's just pure visual brilliance. I know it doesn't seem much at the time when you watch it, but when you actually analyse what's going on, it becomes so much more apparent. And the whole film in general is just such a relaxing film, and I'd say it's probably one of the best sci-fi films I've ever seen. There is one of my favourite scenes from any film that's in the film, and it's the scene with human sort of man-apes. That's basically our race at the most primitive of times, and there's basically two groups of apes fighting over a warthole, and yeah, that's pretty much my favourite scene. That's also the first scene where you get to see the monolith in its purest form. The first monolith, should I say, which basically is a symbolic representation of man's first major step in evolution, where the monkey discovers the bone and then later defeats the apes at the waterhole and throws the bone into the air, and that's where we see the transition jump cut where it fades to an armed satellite. I love that scene and everything that it represents, and yeah, I just think Kubrick is a major genius for coming up with this sort of adaptation. And of course the Jupiter mission, where we're introduced to HAL 9000, one of the intelligent computers ever made within the film. There's a lot of sort of hidden meanings within this film. I think it's one of Stanley Kubrick's most symbolic films and most elaborate films, certainly, which is why I'm trying to explain from my clearest perspective what actually goes on. But I think the majority of people who have seen 2001: A Space Odyssey can sort of take it from what it is. I think everybody's got their own sort of interpretation about it. Basically, I just think this film is a visual masterpiece, and I would definitely recommend the commentary with the two sort of main actors in the film. You get to learn a lot about the sort of behind the scenes creating the film, especially where they're explaining about the sort of concept of the film and where Kubrick got the majority of his ideas from. I love the music choice in this film. I think the classical music was on point, and I'm a big fan of the score in the film anyway, so it made it all the more enjoyable for me. And yeah, I just think this is a really good, relaxing film that allows you to think a lot whilst watching the film. And I definitely recommend it to anybody who is a fan of any of Kubrick's work, although, having said that, it's not a film for everybody. A lot of people have criticism on the film, saying it doesn't meet their expectations of what Kubrick has directed prior and even after this film. And yeah, there's just people that weren't that too satisfied, and people who still aren't that satisfied with the film, but I took it for what it is, and I found an enjoyable, visually stunning masterpiece created by one of my favourite directors of all time. It's one of the greatest sci-fi films I've ever seen. So that was my review on 2001: A Space Odyssey. I will be covering the majority of Kubrick's work. I think I'm going to do A Clockwork Orange next. But yeah, please rate and subscribe. I rate this film a 10 out of 10, and goodbye.